Hi everyone, in this video I want to talk about different types of content that you can use with Anki and other spaced repetition testing programs like High Speed Language, and what type of content you should look for in order to make learning quick and efficient and fun. This is a topic which I don't think is discussed that much, and if you have used Anki and you look under these shared, if we go to get shared, that will bring us to a web page. Here I've looked up the French content already, and I've used this before. I was learning French, a bit of French for a while, and I was looking through this content here, and most of it was not that great. It was pretty average, and yeah, at best average. There was a few files which were reasonable, and I'll explain why that is now. So for good content, the first thing you need to ensure is that it's meaningful, that it's real sentences and not individual words. If you're using and trying to learn individual words, that's probably the hardest way you can learn, and it's probably one of the least productive ways you can learn, because you're learning a language to be able to speak, use, comprehend, and use the language. And if you're not exposed to full sentences, you're not going to get an understanding of the different patterns in the sentence or the grammar of the sentences. So that's why learning with single words is not good, and it makes learning hard. Not only that, not having a full sentence makes it very hard to recall words, because if you have a full sentence, you have some clues. If you only don't know one word in that sentence, you can often kind of guess on what that word will mean, and that process of guessing it based on the context is very important in language learning, and it helps you to learn quickly and without a lot of frustration. So definitely content which just teaches you one word at a time should be avoided if at all possible, and look for content which has full sentences and full interesting sentences which have a rich context. So with the context, for example, if you're wanting to learn the word green in the language, you could just, the content could just have the word green and expect you to learn that, and then it would have the green on, say, the front of the flashcard or the exercise, and the translation in your foreign in your language on the back. But it would be much better if it said the big green tree or something like that, because then if you forgot the word green, or if you weren't 100% sure on it, if you saw tree and big, and you could kind of guess the word green from the context. So that's important. Imagery. So this file here, which I've already opened in the High Speed Language software, and this is the tool that I've created. This is the spaced repetition testing tool, which you'll find more information about on this YouTube channel. This is content you can buy for the Thai language. It's called Rapid Thai Vocabulary. It's content you can download. It's got 2,600 exercises. So you can see here's one exercise. On the left we have notes, and that's a translation, which also includes word for word translations in these brackets here. So on the front of the exercise is the front, and this is the back. We've got, what is this called? And on the back it's called a fly, and we've got an image. So that's a very good exercise, because it asks you a question in the language you're learning. It's got an image to help you think and to associate the vocabulary directly with an image rather than with the foreign translation, and then it gives us the answer. So we have to think, we have to answer, and we have to understand. So this kind of and this has audio for both the question and the answer. So this would be an example of very good content, and if you compared this to learning word by word with the foreign vocabulary on the front and the translation on the back, this is many times better. If you can get videos, that's also helpful, because if you could say get videos from a TV show, maybe sentence by sentence, watching the TV, seeing the different things on the TV can give you clues clues as to what the language is, as to what the vocabulary is. If you forget a few words, you can guess it with what you see on the TV, and that process of guessing, as I said, is very helpful and very useful when you're trying to learn a language. The other important factor when looking for content or creating your own content is to use the vocabulary in multiple different contexts and sentences. So for example, if you're, as I said, learning the word green, you could have in your file, you could have one sentence which includes the word green, and you could repeat that sentence, say 7, 10, 15 times, hoping that you'll remember it. But what would be much better is if you had 3 sentences using the word green in 3 totally different contexts, and instead of having one exercise which you do 10 times, you have 3 exercises and you do them 3 times each. And I'd say that would be optimal. If you could repeat each exercise 3 or 4 times rather than 10 times, that will also make your learning a lot better, a lot more easy and a lot more fun. Because often when you keep repeating the same sentence, you'll find that sometimes you just can't remember it, but then you might come across that vocabulary you're trying to learn in another context. Maybe you're watching TV or you're having a sentence, someone says that word, suddenly you can just very easily remember it. So having the multiple different contexts and reuse of the sentence in multiple contexts is, I would say, extremely important. And this particular file, this RapidTie vocabulary, does that. Each word is reused about 3 times throughout the program, and it teaches about 2,500 words in total. Real content is also very good. So for example, it depends on where you are with your language learning. So for me, with Thai, I read books in Thai, and what I do is I can find a book online or maybe some particular article I want to learn, and there might be some words I'm not familiar with. I can easily import it into high-speed language, and I could also import it into Anki too. I'm not 100% sure how you'd do that with just a foreign language, but there are different ways you can do that with Anki. I think there used to be something called models, and you could create different models. But for in the high-speed language, I can easily create an exercise type where it's just reading, and I would have a Thai sentence and it would come up. I would read the Thai sentence. I would say I'll read through a whole book sentence by sentence. I'd break the book up sentence by sentence, read it one sentence at a time. If I came across a word I didn't know, I would review that sentence 4 times over the next couple months. And for me, that's a very good way to increase my vocabulary in the Thai language, is by reading books, finding words I don't know, and reviewing them 3 or 4 times is fine for me. So getting content and I can find books that I'm interested in, and that way that can keep me motivated with learning. And that's another important factor with learning, is to find content which is interesting. It's harder when you're starting out with the language, because you might be interested in reading, books on sport or news or politics or business. You won't have the amount of vocabulary needed to easily read those articles. It'll be much easier to read those articles once you know 5,000 words or 4,000, 3,000 words. It'll become much easier. Whereas if you don't know every single word in an article, it can be too overwhelming. But once you get to a reasonable level, finding content which is interesting is important. And if you're getting shared content or you're creating content, you could create content to sell or give away for free. If you can make the exercises interesting rather than boring sentences, that is also very helpful for the learner. Having the audio is extremely important when you're starting out. If you don't know, say 5,000 words, you should always be listening to the audio as much as possible when you can. And if you're starting out learning a language, using content without audio is far from optimal. So you should find content which has audio and has a male and a female speaker would be good, and maybe multiple slightly different accents would also be good. With the high-speed language software, if you don't know a word, let's say you're advanced, like for me, I'm advanced in Thai, I'm at the stage of reading books. There's still words that I might see and I might not be 100% sure on how it's pronounced. Much like in English, if I was to read a book in English, I might come across a word and I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it. With high-speed language, you can just click on a word and click on text-to-speech, and that will get you a synthesized audio of that text, which is helpful if you're not sure how to pronounce the words. But that you shouldn't rely on that always if you're beginning learning the language, because the synthesized audio is far from perfect. So I think that basically covers the main points, is that you should have meaningful content. You should try to avoid any content which has single words. The content should have sentences which are rich in context, and the words should be reused in multiple different contexts. If possible, images, video, and the content should hopefully make you think and answer in the language, much like I've got this exercise here. It asks you questions in the language, makes you think about it, and then reply in the language. That's the best. The other very important factor, which I don't see mentioned as well anywhere really, is that to have audio for downloading and listening to. So you could do your reviews in Anki or high-speed language, and always every day do your reviews. But another great way to review, once you've initially learned and basically can remember what you're trying to learn, is to download the audio into, say, your phone, and listen to it whenever you have a chance, and just listen to it as many times as possible. And that's very important to do. So if you click on, in high-speed language, if you click on Deck and Resources folder, this contains all the audio for the files you're using. So you can, these are all the audio files here. You can just copy them to your phone and listen to them when you can. I'd say that's an extremely important way to learn, and I use that a lot. Now I'm learning Indonesian, and I have some content which I use, but as well as using it in high-speed language, I listen to it as much as I can, and that really helps a lot. I think that covers some of the basic points in creating and finding good content to use in these spaced repetition tools. As I said, it's extremely important to find good content. If you're just hammering away and trying to learn single words, it's going to be very hard for you to learn the language. It's going to be hard for you to maintain the motivation. You're going to be frustrated in trying to use those words. But if you have good content, like we can see here on the right, this is just one example. This file has 2,600 exercises. If you have really good content, learning will be so much easier and so much more fun, and you'll learn at many times the pace than you would if you were to use single words. It's definitely worth, if you have to pay for some content in whatever language that will provide that, it will definitely be worth it, rather than trying to learn single words. And you really should expect to, if you're learning a language, to pay for content if you want good content. As I said, in the Anki under Get Shared, there's a lot of content there, but most of it is not good. There's some good, reasonable files, and you can use them, and you can actually just download them into Anki, and you can actually import them into the high-speed language program. But if you don't find anything there, the next best thing you can do is to find some content you're interested in that's at your level, or some sentences. Get the sentences, put them into, say, any kind of spreadsheet on Google Drive or Excel spreadsheet or any free spreadsheet. Find somebody to record them. You could pay somebody to record all those sentences. Hopefully they'll have translations. Make sure they're good sentences. and you can import them into either program and you can learn them that way. That's going to be a good way to learn if you can't find any freely available content. I think that covers it for this video, so thanks for your time.